evening, ladies and gentlemen, friends of the Siam Society. We are reminded that starting time is 7 o'clock. It changed from 7:30. I hope that everybody has arrived and we can get started. Starting to listen to the talk on bronze drums of Southeast Asia, a talk to be given by Professor Dr. Jacques de Guerny. Dr. Jacques de Guerny was a former executive director of a French conglomerate. I found out in the internet that conglomerate was Air France, where he served as senior vice president and general manager in charge of cargo. He also taught as a professor at HEC, or HEC, the École des Hautes Études Commerciales de Paris. He is also a member of the Asian Society of the Institut de France, comprising 5 academies. The prominent, the most well-known is the Académie Française. The Asian Society is one of some 100 foundations under the umbrella of the Institut de France. Professor de Guerny is author of such numerous mundane books, some 43, such as Gestion prévisionnelle à court terme, Prévision et contrôle budgétaire, published in the series entitled Ce qui vous fait savoir. More recently, when in retirement, Professor de Guerny has authored a book entitled Amazon, dans le sillage de la Condamine, published in 2009, based on the journals of Charles-Marie de la Condamine, who explored the Amazon River basin as early as 1743. Then Professor de Guerny has focused his attention and research on Asia. He authored the book entitled Buddha Pada, following the Buddha's footprints, which illustrates and describes the enigmatic icon from its Indian origins over 2 millennia ago through its long journey to its present prominence in Buddhist Asia. Furthermore, he focused on Southeast Asia, researching the evolution of bronze drums. In doing so, he has followed in the footsteps of the Austrian archaeologist Franz Heger, who lived in the late 19th, early 20th century, who was the first to study systematically the Dongson drums and their maritime occurrence. And in 1902, established the typology named after him by categorizing them as, for example, the Dongson bronze is type Heger type 1. More recently, research results were published by Amra Kaluk, first under the title of The Distribution of Bronze Drums in Early Southeast Asia, Trade Routes and Cultural Spheres, Oxford 2009, followed by the book entitled Trails of Bronze Drums Across Early Southeast Asia, Exchange Routes and Connected Cultural Spheres, Singapore, ISIAS 2014. Professor de Guerny's latest book is entitled Les Tambours de Bronze de l'Est, published in 2017, soon to be available as shown here on the screen under the English title of Bronze Drums of Southeast Asia. And this is the topic of today's talk. Let us welcome Professor de Guerny and listen to an interesting talk.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am French, so I hope you will understand my English. I will do my best. I want first to thank Professor Karl Weber for his nice introduction. To tell you the truth, we met 10 minutes ago, Karl. We met 10 minutes ago. So he made a beautiful job because he spoke of more or less all of my life. So thank you very much. And I think you have been surprised to know that an economist, basically, my thesis and Harvard Business School, etc., you have seen on the paper, what an economist is doing with bronze drums. The only explanation is that I am a lover of bronze drums. So when you have a lover of something, you try to know more, you try to have some explanation, and as far as I don't find all the explanation in the other books, excellent of course, I try to do myself a research during about 3 years, visiting all the country we will speak now about, of course visiting the museums everywhere, or the biggest museum everywhere, speaking with their experts, speaking with a professor at the level of university in each of these countries. It was a pleasure, and the result was this book. So we are here today together to speak of bronze drums of Southeast Asia. This is the same book, but with the title in France, Les tambours de bronze de l'Asie du Sud-Est. And they are the same, of course. This is the drum star of Musée Guimet in Paris. His name is Moulier, because a man named Moulier gave the bronze drums to the museum. And you see on this first photo one of the best drums of existing drums. And it's, I think, a good way to continue, and you will see another star, which is the Nok Lu. Each drum has a name based on its origin, is to say the place where it was discovered. Nok Lu, as the other one, is composed of this part at the summit. We call it timpan, from tympanum in Latin. So I adopt this name, of course. The tympanum and the base. The base is here, more or less long. We will see different types of drums. And the tympan is more or less big. We will see different type of drums. So you have seen maybe the two best drums existing now, discovered now, so you know a lot of the drums. And to add to your pleasure, I hope so, now as you can imagine, these are sounds of drums, because these instruments are basically musical instruments. We will see to do what? You know the drums, you know the basic use of the drums to make music, and if we examine the detail of these drums, you will see that it is covered of sculpture. It was not the case at the beginning, as we will see, but it has been little by little covered with sculpture. And if we consider this sculpture, they are composed of geometric design and figurative scenes. As far as geometric design are concerned, the influence is clear. They came from the existing ceramics. The first drums made, we will see that, were made more or less 500 years before Christ, 500 years BCE. And at that time existed for long ceramic culture. So the people making the first drums use, we can understand that, the same geometric design. Here you have a ceramic design. Here you have a drum design. We have no much time, but if we take time, we can compare this to this and so on and so on. This means sometimes water, this means sometimes wind, this means sometimes flowers. So the influence of ceramic was very big as far as the drums are concerned. The drums came not from nothing, came not from scratch. They have antecedents, and ceramics was one of the antecedents. As far as the design are concerned, these are more original. This is different example on my famous no-clue, the star of the Museum of Hanoi. As you see, there are some birds. There are some house with the walls of a house. There are some sceneries, grain crushing. There are some people involved, musician, dancer, warriors, many types of peoples. And we have also, apart the birds very numerous, you have also boats. So we can see a lot of sceneries, not born in the mind of the people, but of the people looking the environment at this time. We have no time to discuss every scenery, but basically now you know everything more or less about drums. You know the format, you know the composition, you know the sounds. It's time maybe to see their history, geohistory in fact, to better understand the drums. In 1 hour we have to summarize. So I don't guarantee 100% that everything is distinct based on this way of presentation. Some details are not here. Some correspondence we have no time to speak about. But basically, we can distinguish 3 stages, what we call cluster. In French, grappe. Cluster is not one point, but a number of points making a kind of region. Region number 1, after region number 2, after region number 3. We can divide our geohistory of bronze drums in 3 main phases, with a certain number of small phases in between or inside. If you read my book, of course, I talk of all these details, but we are obliged in 1 hour to summarize, of course. So we begin by cluster number 1. Cluster number 1 corresponds that we call the Red River. You know the Red River from Hanoi to Yunnan, more or less, and near Kunming. It's a big river of about 500 kilometers, and the drums were born here in the Red River basin. At the north of this basin you have Yunnan. We are now in China. At the south of this river bed we have Hanoi, now in Vietnam. So people of Vietnam say, we are the inventors. People of China say, we are the inventors. In fact, respectfully, we can say that at that time, Yunnan was not Chinese, and the north of Vietnam was not Vietnam. So, in fact, it was a group You laugh, madam?
Yes.
You agree? Okay. I hope so. So, of course, you can imagine my success in China when I say that, and my success in Vietnam when I say that. So, I am prepared to some reaction. But the fact is that at that time, 2,500 years ago from now, there was not China, Yunnan was not Chinese. North Vietnam now, Tonkin, as we can say, was not Vietnamese. Who were there? It was a group of small independent kingdoms from the north of the Red River to the south of the Red River, people, few thousand by kingdom, very fighting and very wealthy, apparently, and they were terrible people, I think, always in war, on when crossing the frontiers of the epocha. So the Chinese say they are the savages of the South. So I dedicated my book to the savages of the South. And they were so savages that one day the China who was existing already, but at the north, say, it's okay, it's finished. So they invaded the South people, including now the Yunnan, including now the North Vietnam, and it was the end of the independence of this kingdom. But in between, they have invented the bronze drums. So thanks to them, it's why I dedicate them my book. So we are in the Red River Basin. And what happened? Around 500 years BCA, between Yunnan, now in South China, and Tonkin, now in North Vietnam, small kingdom existed along the Red River called savages or southern barbarians by the Chinese, and the Chinese will invade them in 111 BCA, but they have invented the bronze drums, exported to the north and exported to the south. My southern barbarians are here, the bed of the Red River Basin. Here is Hanoi, here is Kunming in Yunnan, more or less. So invented here, the drums were sent to the north and were sent to the south. It was the beginning of a long, beautiful and nice system of drums all over Southeast Asia. And of course, we will go these ways after some more explanation about this number one cluster. Difficult to say what year exactly they were invented, because I want to confess that it is impossible up to now to have a datation of a bronze. Impossible. When you have some skeleton inside, you can say with a carbon 14, more or less it is. But maybe the skeleton have been put after. So basically we don't know exactly, but more or less we have an idea. And the format was this one. And the first discovered were here discovered under a dead lady, in fact. And the format was this format at the beginning, around 500 years before Christ, 500 BCA. It was discovered in a place called Vanjiaba. So we speak now of Vanjiaba drums, but maybe in 10 years from now or tomorrow, we will discover others in other position, in other region. But up to now, the truth to now is they have been invented in the Yunnan and future Yunnan and in a place called Vanjaba. But invented from where? Somebody, some authors say, they came from scratch. Wonderful. When you are an intellectual, you say, yesterday they not existed, these drums, today they exist. Wonderful man, another Leonardo da Vinci maybe. Of course, it's not the truth. It takes a long time, and we have seen already that they have been the product of design coming from ceramic, and they have been the product of the Bronze era, which began in this region about 1,000 years before Christ. But the inventor of bronze don't think to make drums after they have the bronze. It was not their first occupation. It was not their first problem. What they did some hooks to fish in bronze, because bronze was better than copper. Copper is difficult to manage, it's too easy to manage. Bronze is strong, we can hook fish with bronze hooks. They think also to make heads of arrows to make the wars. They think a lot of things, including the necessary instruments to cook and to live. So the bronze drums were not invented at the beginning of the Bronze era. It was maybe at the end, when everything useful was said, that they were invented. There are a lot of theories, but no proof at all. But if we think to these people, it may be that making some kettles to cook, they hear the sound of the kettle, and here, little by little, they have new invention, and the kettle become a drum. I think this explanation can be admitted if there is no other proof. It's better to admit this solution than to say it's a miracle for one day for another, or they have invented from scratch. No. And maybe the kettles play a role, because the kettles, they were everywhere, and the kettles were very useful, and their sound became to me remarkable compared with the old drums made of wood, made of animals' peels. So the drums may be from kettle, probably from kettle, but not sure. We have nothing written telling us this. This is from the Museum of Yunnan. You can see the development from kettle of some drums. And you see there is nothing sculpted on the drums. They are really pot. And they take the pot and they realize that the sound was very strong, and they little by little invented the drums, and little by little they put some sculptures of the drums. This means that the sounds from this moment not only express sounds, but express also one idea, an idea of bird, an idea of boat, an idea of house, as we have seen with the no clue 10 minutes before. So the drums, basically musical instruments, became so much more, became a way to make music with a sense, with a signification, maybe to pray the gods, to pray the spirits. These people were animists. They have a lot of tentative relation with the skies. The drums became a way not only to express things from the earth, but also to express things to the sky. And it was a big progress if we compared with the drums before, made of wood and made of animal skins, because on these old drums they were not sculpted, only they make some sounds. Here we have sounds and story, sounds and meaning, and it was the beginning of a success of the drums. And from this beginning, of course, there were a lot of progress. You see, now we have more a drum than a kettle. The kettle more or less is forbidden. They exist, the kettles, but the categories now are very different. And they put something on the drums. And particularly they put this kind of batracian. Why? Because this animal, they cry, and they cry when the rain will come. So if we make the sound with a drum, this animal will help to ask for the rain, to ask for the change of climate, and if we have maybe too much rain, to stop the rain. So the basic utilization of the drums were to regulate the climate. It's why the sculpture here and around are mainly based on aquatic subject, aquatic plants, aquatic like boats, aquatic instruments, etc., etc. And here, this wonderful one, coming from Tanoa, a town at the south of Hanoi, named Kam Jan, have very nice ducks here, 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 at the four extremes of the tympan. They have ducks. You can have also other animals, horses, sometimes some kind of dogs, and also people. You see this guy on the horse, doing horse here. You have people, but it's very rare. Basically, they are animals, and basically they are aquatic animals. They made drums of many dimensions. They made drums as we see, the first one about 1 meter height and about 1 meter of diameter, but they make also small ones, about 5 to 10 centimeters. Of course, you cannot play music with this kind of small drums. You cannot play music, but we recover them in the tombs. And in the tombs also we found these drums. In fact, basically we made sounds to express some needs of rain, etc., etc., but also they became very, very useful instruments in the tombs of people. People want to have their drums put in their tombs. It means that they were rich because the price of the drums was certainly very high. Good pieces of metal, good artists to make them, and it is sure because we have no fine drums in the tombs of poor people. First, because poor people have no tombs generally, but when we have tombs, never we found drums. These drums, they have been recovered in tombs, generally speaking, 90%. And so we can distinguish the quality of the people, how rich they are, because with the drums, they are sometimes gold, they are sometimes different other materials, deluxe materials. So basically they were made, they were bought by rich people, they were costly, but for the medium class, they cannot afford to buy a big drum like that, so these small ones were made for them. Not everybody, because I exclude the power, but a lot of people can buy these small drums and put these small drums in their tomb. So in their tomb, these small drums will emit music, and the music will go to the sky, to another life. So we can explain how successful were the drums. They were part of the life, they were part of the funerals, they were part maybe of an afterlife, and this means the importance of the drums during more than 2,000 years along all this Southeast Asia. This famous cluster number 1 goes in the north, as I told you, and goes in the south. Maybe we can take the example of Thailand, because we are in Thailand. These drums, they are 2,000 years old, more or less, from the Red River. And they discover completely from the souvenir of the people. They have been discovered very recently during the last century, doing a bridge, doing a new road, doing a new house. People discover maybe old cemeteries, and it's why little by little the museum of the National Museum was able to make this map about 20 years ago. On this map you see that they discovered by chance a lot of old drums from cluster number 1 in Thailand. And we have the same in Laos, and we have the same in Myanmar, and we have the same in Cambodia. This means that 2,000 years ago, all the region that we call Indochina were covered by bronze drums. And every day or every week, we discover now a new drum, old drum, when we make a new big house or a new bridge or a new highway. We have not finished to discover the bronze. And of course, there are a lot of bronze drums smuggled, disappearing, sold. But at least this one were noticed, were documented in museums or not. You have examples like this. The number B, for example, is you can see in Chumphon Museum. The number A in Uttaradit in the north. All the region, all Indochina, were covered by drums. And all these drums were forgotten during centuries and centuries, and only by chance they were discovered now, and we can more or less imagine that was this culture of drums. But after that came cluster number 2. Before to go to cluster number 2, just to demonstrate what I was saying, these have been discovered in Myanmar. They have been forgotten also, discovered recently in tombs. These are the last one discovered in Villabuli in Laos. Modern people discovered the old drums. It was 15 years ago. Here it was in Proea in Cambodia, discovered less than 20 years ago. So little by little, in all Thailand, in all Laos, in all Cambodia, everywhere, including Vietnam South, because Vietnam South never made drums, but they received drums. At that time, they were not Vietnam, they were Champa or other culture, but they received drums. So all Indochina, what we call Indochina, were covered with old drums. And now, little by little, we discover them, and we can explain now how it was, more or less, of course, and have a complete exam of the situation. It was not possible 50 years ago. We have to go now to cluster number 2. Here you remember cluster number 1, it was minus 500 to 200 after Christ. And in China, they were developed during century after that in the different dynasty of Chinese, but they were forgotten in Indochina. So go to cluster number 2. Cluster number 2 began more or less 1,000 years after cluster number 1. Cluster number 1 began in minus 500 BCE. More or less, cluster of number 2 began 500 or 60 years CE, is to say 1,000 years after. Of course, people doing these drums have been certainly influenced by the old drums. At that time, old drums certainly have not been completely forgotten as they were recently now, and people were inspired by the drum. But as we will see, they are basically different. They were made by a people named Karen, precisely Karenni, red Karen. There are many types of Karen. It was the Karenni, the red Karens. They invented the new drums, and it was in a place in Burma, now Myanmar, and we have to see that more precisely now. This is a Karenni drum. You know the drums of the first generation. You remember the Noklu, you remember the Moulier on my books, were like mushrooms, more or less, mushrooms. Now it's conic. So they are drums. They have been influenced probably by the old ones, but they are basically different. And they have few specification compared with the old ones. They are more height than broad. It was the contrary for the oldest ones. They are star, yes, and many frogs on top. Frogs is really the signature, one of the signature of the Burma drums. Animal in relief in the base, frogs, and you have here animals, and the number of animals here correspond to the number of frogs. So it's not only poultry, it's very, very, very regulated. But we have no more human scenes. We have no more people. We have no more houses. We have no more boats. It's really a new entity of drums. And in average, they are about 50 centimeters height and broad a little less. The others were basically 70, 80 centimeters, except the mini ones, except some giants by exception. So we have now facing us a new type of drums. So it's cluster 2 from 600 years after Christ, not precisely because once again we cannot be sure of the datation of the drums, and it will be a very successful cluster. Have a look first at the details. You see the famous frogs. Here you have 2 frogs. Sometimes you have 3 frogs, sometimes 4 frogs, sometimes 5 frogs, up to 5 frogs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 4 times around. What mean? It means that frogs were very popular. Yes. It means that we need a lot of rain. Rain is very important. The agriculture is the number 1 necessity and the number 1 wealth for these people. So we need rain or stop the rain when too much. So that maybe also some kinds to do with sex or fertility at least. I have no time to speak of sex here, sorry, but in my books we will find some explication about that. And you see that they are not only frogs, but here you have elephant. Sometimes you have other animal. And why elephant? The explanation is the same. Elephant make a lot of noise. when an elephant have noise, he can also ask for water in the spirit of his people. Up to now, elephants are very sacred animal, but also their sound, their music is very important, as is important the music of the frogs. On the center, you have this kind of thing. Europeans say it's a sun, or a moon, a star. Not sure. I have some other explication of my books, and it will be too long to explain that. I am not sure at all it was star or it was sun. You have also mini drums for the same reason. Mini of few centimeters, the rich by the big ones, the medium class by the small ones, and once again, the low class by nothing. You see some other way. This famous star here, you see many ways to express it. With two frogs, one toad here, not frog but toad, three toads, etc., etc. So, to ask for water, to ask for fertility, maybe to ask for sex, a kind of fertility also. I go because they were used until now. You have here a Karenni musician with a cloth, red cloth, because he is a red Karen. Red cloth, and is in a museum. They ask for me, this musician, to come, and he plays the drums. There is another schema of a drums player. The center of this is in Loiko. Loiko is the center of the Ren Karenni here, at the southeast of Burma. And you see ladies playing drums. I have seen this lady with this special permit, and it's fabulous to see them. They have 5 drums, because we are in a like all the Chinese music, they have 5 notes. And on these 5 notes, we have 7 notes. Remember Aristotle. They have 5 notes, and around the 5 notes, they can play everything. And they play everything. Each drum has a particular sound. You cannot decide of the sound of a drum before to make it. But when it is made, you can say, what is your note? And they have different notes. And you can make a kind of orchestra. My only question is, was it exists? It's not for tourists. We need a permit to visit that kind of thing. But does it exist for a long time? The importance of the missionaries were very big in Burma. Maybe it was a kind of invention from missionary. Nobody knows, but the result is wonderful, and this means that even now you can see, at least in Burma, all drums in activity. You remember maybe this photo. It was taken during the funerals of the King of Thailand 1 year ago. At the beginning of all the groups going on, there was these people playing drums. Drums like this one. We can see in the National Museum here in Bangkok. And these drums, as you see, are Burma drums. This famous Cluster 2, they send drums all over Indochina. We found these drums in Vietnam, in Laos, in Cambodia, not only in Burma, and particularly in Thailand. Even if people of Thailand speak generally of Thai drums, but basically they are Burma drums. They had some gold. This gold did not exist in Burma. They are painted, or it's real gold. The royal family has about 20 drums like this, and the drums play an important role in very big ceremonies to introduce the king or for funeral like this. So the drums you see in Thailand, apart the old ones we can see, we discover in the earth, the drums we use in Thailand are basically Burma drums. We have seen the cluster 1, we have seen the cluster 2. We know that there were cluster 1 made a lot of invoices in the north of China, in the south here, all Indochina, Indonesia, etc., etc. And Indonesia received the drums. A long time ago, it took about 2 or 3 months to go from the Red Valley to Indonesia. This means a lot of organization, a lot of traders, a lot of boats, a lot of marketing people, if I can say that. As far as I am basically an economist, as Professor Weber was kind to remember, of course, it interests me to know how can that be done. It is done only if we have a very big organization, if people receive money to transport them, to buy them at the origin, and to have customers. It's a kind of old marketing. And this, to my point of view, explains a lot of things. The success of the drums is not only a question of believing in animist God or others. Of course, it's very important, it's basic. But all this does not exist if you have not a very good economic system to take care of this, because a lot of drums have made the trip, hundreds and hundreds. It is not like this, oh, I have a drum, I give you, you go, you make 50 kilometers and good luck. No. You have drums made and drums customers, and in between an organization. Maybe Schumpeter was born at that time, more or less. Now it's a joke, of course, but economy plays certainly a big role in the success of drums, and not only the animist spirit, which was basic, of course, but not sufficient to explain this organization. So we are now in Indonesia, and people of Indonesia receive drums from the Red River Valley. The drums go by land with Krat Isthmus, Malaysia, so groundways. It took between 2 and 3 months as far as we have relation of travels at that time. Or soon by boats. When we can manage the boats better, they go directly to Indonesia. So these two ways permit to have a lot of old drums in Indonesia. Not made in Indonesia, but coming from the Red River Valley with a long trip like that. This cluster number 3 was basically composed of drums coming from cluster number 1. But it was not the end of the story. People of Indonesia invented a new kind of drums based on the drum they received from the north, but completely different. And arriving in Indonesia, we can see how they are big. These drums exist in museum in Jakarta or in Yogyakarta. I visited, of course. They are very, very big. And they came by road or by boat from Dongson, from Yunnan, from Dian Kingdom, from Dongson Kingdom, from Guangxi, making Guangxi is a province near Vietnam, in the south of China, near Yunnan, and they came, and now about 50, only 50 early drums have been discovered in Indonesia, by chance also, because you built a new house, you make a new road, and you discover by chance the drum. But it was really by chance. So if a day, and the day is coming now, teachers of Indonesia began to make some research and not only have chance, I'm sure we will find hundreds of drums from Red River, from the north, now in the earth in Indonesia. Okay, it's 50 pieces are sufficient to know that it exists a big traffic with big drums between the north and the south. And people of Indonesia receive them very positively. Why we can say that? Because we discover them in the tombs of the people. If you put something in your tomb, it is because you like it. You think it's important for you, for maybe accompany you when you die. So for sure, they accept very well this drum from the north. They pay certainly a lot to have them, and based on that, they created their own drums, This is the format of their own drums, created at the end of the first millennia of our era, is to say about 600, 800 years after Christ. You see, the format is completely different. It is no more a mushroom. It is no more a cone, a conic drum. It is what we call the hourglass style, is to say a format very vertical like this, like when you have hourglass. You know, hourglass is to see, it takes 1 hour to go in an hourglass, etc. It's a way to test the time, and it is the format of their drums. But look, this one is nearly 2 meter height, 2 meter, more than me. Drums like this, in the format of hourglass. And the small one, called moko, in fact, moko means drums in Indonesian, but okay. So moko are small paging. And paging, why? Because these paging drums, the moon of paging, because it was supposed to come from the moon by the people. And this moon of paging has been discovered in a small town called Paging in Bali. So all these drums now are paging, all these drums are only moko. And you see that they are very different. First, they are hourglass style, no more mushroom. They are more height than broad. They have nothing on the top, no animals at all. They are faces of people on the mid base, and you have faces, as you have in stones in their cemeteries. They make faces in stones, they made bronze, they put the faces on the bronze. So they invented really a new kind of drums. And never these drums went up, never they came in Thailand, never they came in Indochina. They stay only in Indonesia. Up to now, we have discovered few drums, but enough, around 50, enough to know that they existed, and they were very successful, certainly. The big one disappeared before the colonialists arrived. So before the 16th century, even if they have been discovered by the people, it was people from the Holland government who discovered that. He was suffocated, and he wrote to Amsterdam, "I have seen something incredible drums coming from the moon. Okay, it was 300 years ago. Name was Rufus. And so they created this drum. This pidgin no more exists now. The end of pidgin maybe 4 or 5 centuries ago. We don't know the reason why. Maybe the coming of Islam, maybe. They disappear. Moko exists always, but exists only on few spots. We have a look now. You see another bronze drums here in the Museum of Singapore, but coming from Indonesia. 161 centimeters height. You have here some mold to make the drums in stones with some sculpture on the stone, and they have the same technique of the people of the north. They use the same technique based on wax, using stone and wax, based on the format on their more popular drums. So they adapted the format of the drums to their needs and to their habits. It's not strange, more or less it's normal. You adapt the things to your habits. This moko, which exists now, it's the only one to exist and to be made. It's a strange animal. It's funny. It has been very well described in the book of Mrs. Ambracalo. You mentioned Carl. Ambracalo, it's a nice lady from Italy who has this PhD in London. I meet her during 2 days, and she was kind to present to me the drums in his neighborhoods. And she described very well the way to make them. I visit also the same place. They are only made in one place now, in Java, place named Mojokerto. I cannot tell you what it means. They are made in Mojokerto here. You see the mold. I have seen the mold. I take the photo, of course. And they are catalogs of moko. Catalogs on paper. You can buy a moko like this or like this. If you ask for a moko with your name on the moko, they will make a moko with your name on the moko. This means that commerce here, there, is very important, more than over philosophy maybe, but okay. And here we are in Alor. It is the only place where people use moko now, not before, now. So they are made in Java. They are used in Alor. Alor is a small archipel composed of 15 islands far from Java, about 1,500 kilometers. Many planes to go now, and before it was only boats. I was in Alor to visit people. This is one of the owner of this moko. Here the moko is in the house, at the top of the house, because to protect them, to be sure that nobody touch the moko. Why? Because the moko now is like a dowry. When you marry ladies in Alor, you receive a moko. If you are poor, it's a moko of 50 American dollars. If you are rich, it can be a moko of thousands of dollars, old ones. New ones value between $50 and $200. So if you are a lady there, including the Islam ladies, because Islam is the first religion in Alor, and after the Protestant and after the Catholic, few ones only. But all they received the drums. And they speak of their drums very nicely, because they receive when they marry. And something, and they are very proud of their moko, and they love their moko. And I have time enough 2 days to speak with them and to be sure that it's not only a question of mode, basically, at least for the old ladies. The young ones maybe prefer the money to the moko, but this is another story. So we are at the end of the story. We have seen the cluster number 1, we have seen the cluster number 2, we have seen the cluster number 3, from Red River Valley, and after Burma, now Myanmar, and after Indonesia. So it's time to think a little bit more. We have no much time, but 5 minutes more only to try to explain this. What were the main functions of a drum? If we recapitulate all this geo-story we have made during 1 hour. We are based on terrestrial sounds, day-to-day sounds, to ask for rain, to ask for a new climate, and little by little we are going to a kind of music, celestial music, for the animist, for the gods, for the shaman, etc. But basically, the first function was musical function and aquatic priorities. But we can say maybe also it was the remainder of the deluge myth, one of the biggest myths of humanity all over the world. So if we see our feet, we say it's to master the rains. If you look at the sky, we say it's the master the earth, it's the master all the animist system. After maybe the second one was funeral. And the question is the same. Funeral, okay. They have the drums in their tombs, but to do what? To do music, okay. But to do music not only today, but to do music maybe in another world. So for the sky, security, yes, because war, soldiers were playing, the sound was very big. With a drum you can go to 10 kilometers, and to be, when you are in war, this play a role to have big sounds. Maybe the enemy will hesitate to come if he hears so much sounds. He will say, oh, there is a big army. The same for you if you are attacked. Self-protections in case of wars, but maybe also demons, maybe also in the sky. Cultural, yes, festivities, families. When a baby is born, when you marry, we use, and we continue to use in few countries, but particularly in Myanmar, the drums, because it's a festivities. But the shaman use also the drums, and not for your normal life, praying the skies, more or less. Economic, I put this in number 5, you know, but important, I think. The success of the drums was an economic success, kind of prestige, trade, but also a way to survive. When you give your drum to your son or to your girl, it's a case sometimes, well, you give money. And it's a kind also, when you put the drum in your tomb, it's a question to survive. So you see, I put between brackets few ideas that mean that it's not only a day-to-day value, it's maybe a sky values, it's maybe much more. So it's a mix of, I call here, basic instincts and animist quest. The difference between the two maybe does not exist in their mind 2,000 years ago. And our people of the 20th century, when they discover the drums, this man of Austria you mentioned, Eger, or people of EFAO. Also, we were divided in two camps. Some say, well, what we see, boats, etc., it is like a photo of the environment. It was the case of a leader of EFAO at this time named Parmentier. He said, oh, it's a photo of the environment put on the drums. Other people from the EFAO also, like Golubev, say, no, 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 no. No, with the drums, we can pray the skies. We can pray our future. So it's not only a physical question, it's a metaphysical question. Don't ask me to say this is good, this is wrong. I think it's a mix of both. Reality show, yes, but phantasmagoria also. And what is the result of that? It's a 2,500 years odyssey. From basic pots, from kettles to make food, to masterpiece, as we have seen, we have really all the way, including spiritual and commercial values. So it was really a culture of bronze drums. And despite large blank period when they were forgotten, South Asia bronze drums were active till nowadays. We have seen in Myanmar, we have seen in few other countries, Alor, etc. But the big success now of the drums are in the museum or in the collection of private people. They are collected worldwide now. More than 3,000 big drums have been noticed, is to say documented. They are in museum. 2/3 of them are in China. This Indochina is a minority of drums, China a majority of drums. And the thing changed very quickly and very much after World War II. I had, alas, because there was the end of colonialism. They are the beginning of new ways of thinking, independent people, no more the same taste for religion. During Mao, it was the end of a lot of thinkings in China. The same after the colonial period in Indochina. I don't speak of Thailand because you were never colonized, but on the other side, including Indonesia, of course. So the drums now are finishing, and they will never come. Not completely finishing, because there are some last remaining cults, but it's the end. But will survive nostalgia or folklore. And when we see this in Guangxi, at the south of China, near Yunnan, there are festivals, a lot of festivals of drums. You saw, these ladies are like old ladies. They are old ladies first, but they are old clothes. But it's a festival. The other ones have blue jeans and so on. So it's a lot of nostalgia, a lot of folklore, but people like to represent these old times, and not only the old ones, these old times when the glory of the drums existed. In any case, they survive, the drums, in the museum. They are one of the best treasures of the human culture. I think you agree, and you agree more if you are a lover of bronze drum as I am. I hope you are now a little bit lover of bronze drums. Thank you very much.